And a good Wednesday morning, Quad Cities. It is 9 o'clock on the dot here on this October 9th. And this is the fourth episode, or fourth installment, if you will, of Ask Andrew Live. I'm meteorologist Andrew Stutzke. Good to be with you here this morning. A nice, cool start to the day, weather-wise. We got a couple of things to talk about. Actually, more than a couple. You can see behind me there on the monitor, we've got a Hurricane Milton churning in the Gulf of Mexico, getting ready to make landfall in Florida in the next hours ahead of us here. We've also got some temperature swings on the way too. So a lot to talk about. How does this work? Well, this is streaming right now on the WQAD News 8 Plus app, which you can find on your smart television. If you have a Roku stick, an Amazon Fire TV stick, Apple TV, you can find it there. And what we're going to do for this next half hour is we're not only going to dig into some weather stuff a little bit deeper than we normally would have time to on the air during a newscast, but we're also going to answer your weather-related questions. How do you send them to us? Well, if you're watching on a live stream on our social media channel, like Facebook, for example, you can put it in the comments section there. But the best way going forward, especially once we move this exclusively over to the News 8 Plus app on your smart TV, is going to be using our text message number. That is 309-304-0888. Text and data rates may apply depending on your cell phone plan. Don't forget the legalese at the bottom of your screen there. But again, weather-related questions, I'll be answering those as we go through the next 30 minutes here. We're also going to take a deep dive into Milton, a historic storm by all indications here. It's already broken records, and I think there's more records yet to come as this thing makes landfall. So we're going to start by diving into that first. Then we'll get into your questions. I like to leave at least a few minutes here allow you to get your questions in. We know not everybody's racing to the live stream right at 9, so those folks that are just now coming into the stream, welcome. If you have a question, you can go ahead and text it to us with that number at the bottom of your screen, or if you're on Facebook, put it in the comments section. Let's get started, and let's start talking about what we talked this morning and Ask Andrew, and that was all about Milton, and we were talking about storm surge, because I think that's going to be the biggest thing that we're going to see from this storm going forward. I'm actually going to take you to a live look really quickly here, and this is from, I believe, Naples. And you can see the pier there. We're starting to get a little bit of some wave action starting to pop up there. Now, Naples is not in a hurricane warning proper. They're in a tropical storm warning. However, even this part of Florida, in Naples, is expected to see up to 6 feet worth of storm surge. That will certainly do some damage, and I'm 6'2", so just think of how much water is going to come racing on shore. By the way, side note, the app that you're on right now, if you're watching us from the WQAD 8 Plus app, is going to have live views throughout Florida of this hurricane right after we get done with Ask Andrew. It's another great resource to watch if you're looking for some live video feeds as this storm rolls in. Let's go to the satellite view, and I'll show you what's going on in terms of. We have definitely seen some weakening, and you notice what's happening is we're actually getting some drier air that is starting to make its way into the storm. So it's not only feeding in some dry air, we're also getting what we call some wind shearing going on. You notice the heaviest storm activity and the most biggest part of the storm is now on its eastern flank here. There's not much going on the backside on the west here. Things are quieting down. What that's telling us is this thing is becoming a little bit more compact, but it also has been downgraded from a 5 to a 4. Now, the numbers are all relative. Whether it's a 3, a 4, or a 5, we are still talking about historic and catastrophic damage that this storm is expected to cause. Right now, the center of the storm is now less than 200 miles away from Tampa, Sarasota, and Naples. So we're getting it closer and closer. You can see actually the first significant outer band of Hurricane Milton is just sitting offshore here with copious rounds of thunderstorms. Meanwhile, you go further to the east, and there is likely going to be an outbreak of tornadoes today here across the central part of Florida, stretching from Fort Myers to West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale. Even Miami is included in this. We've already seen numerous tornado warnings associated with these storms on the outermost band. This is not uncommon. You think about a hurricane, there's a lot of rotation going on here. So the tornado threat is definitely there across Florida. And the National Weather Service and Storm Prediction Center, who kind of remains on top of the tornado threat, if you will, the severe weather threat, advising that even after dark tonight, a couple of strong, long track tornadoes are going to be likely across parts of Florida, especially as we near landfall with Milton. So here's the latest on what we've got with that. Winds of 155 miles an hour. We're picking up a little bit of forward speed. There you see the landfall occurring late tonight, early tomorrow morning. That'll be a Category 4 at landfall. And yes, a very, very strong storm. Let's zoom it right in here so you can see kind of where the cone now encompasses. We're close enough to landfall where we're really getting a tighter and tighter view of where this thing is potentially going to hit the ground here. And that's going to be between Tampa, right near Sarasota, and also just north of Fort Myers there along Interstate 75. So that's where we're looking for the landfall to occur. There's been a little bit of jogging with this at the last minute, and that's going to continue to be the case. These storm systems, before they make landfall, will tend to wobble north and south. So that's why we still have this much of a cone going in. But still, the greatest impacts are going to be where you have the hurricane warning currently in place. And that does include Tampa. It is just north of Naples, by the way. Naples is in a tropical storm warning. But from Cedar Key, Spring Hill, Tampa, Sarasota, Port Charlotte, and down to Fort Myers, and then all the way to the east. So I have, for example, some family members that live in Palm Coast, Florida. They're included in that. You've got Orlando included in this. So even further inland, it's not the storm surge, it's the wind that's going to be the threat there. We can look at the wind, though, and using that with our future track model here. What I've done is I put on where the strongest winds are going to be. Also, the wind direction is with those arrows. Where do we see the storm surge? Well, it's up and ahead of the strongest winds. So looking at the map here, you see Sarasota into Tampa ahead of that fuchsia color. That's where you're going to see your biggest storm surge, and also the storm surge coming in from the wind hitting the land directly from the ocean water. So look at north of Fort Myers as the eye begins to make landfall. You've got the strongest winds pushing right up on the ground there onto shore. That's what brings in the storm surge, and some of it is going to be quite significant. The latest forecast on that still calling for an impressive 12 to 15 feet worth of storm surge as we go into Tampa and also through Sarasota and near Port Charlotte. So that is a very, very life-threatening situation. Again, this is likely going to break records. With Helene, Tampa had a 7.5-foot storm surge, and that was a record high for them. This is going to be nearly double that. So that is why the wording or verbiage that emergency management officials are using with this storm is so strong, because this is storm surge coming into this region of Florida that is going to be of historic proportions. Rainfall is also going to be historic too. And this is something, we really didn't think about until I saw this the other day. But remember that a lot of these places that were hit by Helene, they had a lot of sand washed ashore. And a lot of that sand is now caught in their storm sewer system. So that could further enhance some of the street flooding, especially on the areas that were most impacted by Helene 2 weeks ago. So even the heavy rain will be a very, very precarious situation to be in. And you see the heaviest is going to be right there from Tampa through north of Orlando up to Daytona Beach. The good news with this system, as I've been talking about, is it's not going to be a Carolina system. This is not going to be a repeat of Helene. The moisture gets cut off because of a cold front that's slicing through the northern half of Florida. That limits the impacts. Want to review really quickly before we start taking some of your questions, the Ask Andrew segment I had this morning, asking what is storm surge and how do we measure what storm surge is. So storm surge, when you have winds over 100 miles per hour, you can imagine the kind of waves that creates. Well, when you sustain that wind speed for a long time, you can actually bubble up a huge wave, which is a surge wave that comes in. And those waves can be as high as you saw there earlier, 10 to 15 feet in some cases. So here's how we calculate it. Given this example here, there's the different scales and the different heights. So for this example, we're forecasting an 8-foot storm surge at your location. The elevation where you live is 4 feet above sea level. So what you do is you take that 4 feet off of the 8 feet because you're already 4 feet higher than the ground, and that's what we're forecasting is that ground level for the 8 feet. That gives you a storm surge water height of 4 feet above the ground level where you are. And even 4 feet can do a significant amount of damage. That's no joke. But when you talk about this being 10 plus feet, even at sea level, if you're at ground level, that destroys everything in its path. As I said earlier, this storm has broken records already. It is the 5th strongest hurricane on record according to pressure. It is the strongest hurricane to become developing here in the Atlantic this late in the season into October. It's the only Category 5 hurricane, and this was interesting, to move in a southeast direction. We've never had a Category 5 hurricane do that in the Atlantic. That was a first for me. I had no idea that had even been a possibility. Second fastest fall in pressure within 48 hours. We saw that 2 days ago. That was amazing. And the third fastest rise in wind within 24 hours. Notice this is even stronger than Katrina right here. Much, much stronger in terms of pressure when this thing was cranking. Just a couple of days ago. Not the first time Florida's been seeing impacts from hurricanes either. We've already had Helene this year in 2024 at a Category 4. 2023, we had Idalia, remember that. And look at all of the landings here. So this storm kind of coming in close to what Hurricane Ian did in 2022. The rest of the storms a little bit farther away from the impact zone that we're expecting for today. So, yeah, Milton is going to cause some big, big problems. It will be a historic storm, and our continued thoughts and prayers remain with our fellow Americans that are down in the state of Florida and all those that are going to be impacted. I hope everybody was able to make it out, those that wanted to leave, those that needed to leave. We're going to see some dramatic pictures and video as we get into tomorrow morning, and of course, we're going to be covering all of that live here, not only on the WQ80 News 8 Plus app. We'll be streaming some storm coverage there, but also on GMQC tomorrow morning, we'll have the live reports from the field too. Interestingly enough, you may remember Luke Clary, who used to be here, one of our reporters and weekend evening anchors. He's actually at our sister station. I think it's WSTP or WTSP, one of the two. I probably got it backwards, but Channel 10 there in Tampa Bay. That is a Tegna station, and he's actually there right now, supplementing their hurricane coverage. So also thinking of him too, and hope everybody there at our sister station at Channel 10 in Tampa Bay stays safe as this storm moves through. It is going to be a big one. We'll get to some of your questions here. And now that we've given you enough time to go ahead and get those roped in, a reminder too, if we don't get to them, I will save it for the next episode of Ask Andrew, and that's here every Wednesday at 9 a.m. As long as I'm working, of course. There's going to be some vacation days coming up, but we'll sort those out later. No worries. Let's see who we've got this morning. Mike from East Moline asks, what is hurricane seeding? So likely what Mike is referring to is we do have aircraft that can fly into hurricanes. In this case, we're not really seeding the hurricane when it comes to Milton. What we're doing is we're flying in with the hurricane hunters, and we're actually taking measurements. Literally, there's probably a flight going in and out of there about every other hour at this point because the storm is so close to making landfall that the more observations we can get. But I would not call that really hurricane seeding. There is a thing it's called cloud seeding, though, and that definitely is real. We've seen some of that. It's been something that's been around for years. Last I looked into it, it was 30 plus years we've had cloud seeding around, but definitely no cloud seeding going on in this storm. You don't need that. It's already got plenty of rainfall, and it's already kind of causing enough mayhem, if you will. That's the last thing you want to do there. But yeah, we have hurricane hunters going in and out of that storm constantly. At last check, there's no flight going in there right now. I have a feeling, though, in about another hour or two, we are going to see another Hurricane Hunter plane take off and go ahead and go in there. The last one was yesterday. Hurricane crews, I bet, are getting ready to go in there this morning. This was yesterday's flight. You can kind of see that there. And it's kind of interesting, too, when you look at these flights and what they do in terms of their flight pattern. We kind of zoom that out a little bit. It kind of does a little bit of a zigzag. So there's a flight that comes out of, I think it's somewhere in Louisiana, and then there's another one that'll come out of parts of Florida. They kind of tag team this, and they go in and out throughout the eye of the storm. You may have seen the video this morning that we played where that severe turbulence took place. for the one crew that was flying through getting measurements too. So that storm is rocking and rolling, no doubt about it there. But you see, it's an interesting flight path. They like to go not only during the middle of the storm, right through it, but they also like to go in and around the storm too. The purpose of this, or the goal of this, is the more data we have, the more measurements we have, the more of that we can feed into our models, and the models will become more accurate in terms of a landfall. So that's kind of on my bucket list, is I want to fly with a hurricane hunter, even though I hate turbulence. But to be able to go inside the middle of an eye of a hurricane in an airplane and just see that breathtaking, calm appearance to the sky, the blue sky above you. In some instances, you've got wildlife in there, like birds that are caught in the eye too. So it is an amazing thing to see. I got to add that to my bucket list at some point. Marcus from Knoxville, I know who that is, asking, why do hurricanes have an eye and how are they created? So with hurricanes, these are very complex storm systems, and they actually involve both a low and a high pressure. Now at the surface, you're going to have a low pressure system. That's a given. But when you get up into the upper levels of the atmosphere, there's actually an area of high pressure that sits at the very top of that storm system. That's how we get this venting of all of this heat energy. So for example, several hours ago, when Milton had a more defined eye, and I'm going to try and actually back this up here so you can see this, because the eye is filling in right now. We're going through what's called another eye wall replacement cycle, which means the storm is weakening a bit. But we're also starting to see the storm get a little bit more compact too. So Milton's having some weakening going on right now. I'm going to zoom this right back in. Let me reload this up here for you so you can see how this kind of evolves. So obviously there it is. You have the counterclockwise spin, which is what we typically see with low pressure. But again, in the upper levels of the atmosphere, you've got this high pressure system going on. And if you look at the high level clouds, you can actually see what that's doing here. And I'll draw that on here so kind of give you a little bit more reference. This really shows it beautifully. So here's our hurricane Milton, and we've got winds going in that direction. Well, that arrow didn't work out too well. That's okay. But you can check here. Notice we have counterclockwise flow here. And then as we go further north, there's more of a counterclockwise flow that goes around the outside of the hurricane. So in the middle, where you have that big difference in pressure from the ground to the upper levels of the atmosphere, that's where you have your eye wall form. That's the vent, if you will, of the hurricane. So great question. Thank you, Marcus, for sending that in. And I'll see you this weekend. I knew who that was. John asked, can cloud seeding create a hurricane? It can help sustain a hurricane, but I have yet to see a case where we have used cloud seeding to create a hurricane. What a lot of people don't know with cloud seeding, if you're not familiar, that's where airplanes go up, they release these particles into the sky, into clouds that already exist, and it enhances rainfall. That's the goal. You can't go up into a blue sky and cloud seed with no clouds. There has to be clouds there already for the cloud seeding to work. And that's kind of a misconception. There's a lot of people that think we can go right up into a crystal clear blue sky, drop these particles into the air, into the atmosphere, and boom, clouds will form and rain will fall. That's not how it works. You actually have to have a system already in place that you can enhance. So whether there's clouds already in place or whether it's raining already, that has to be a prerequisite, if you will, for cloud seeding to work. But that is a really, really great question. Tyler's wondering, as we're getting closer to winter, why are there changes coming to wind chill alerts? Great question. Yeah, this is something we've been working with the National Weather Service now for a number of weeks. There will be certain advisories that will be getting different names. There will be some advisories that will be going away. For example, wind chill advisory, wind chill warning, wind chill watch. Those will be changing to cold weather warnings, cold weather watches, mainly to just kind of make it seem a little bit easier to understand. When we talk about wind chill, not a lot of folks know or realize how the wind chill factor works, how it's calculated. A lot of people didn't even know that it doesn't apply to inanimate objects. The wind chill factor only applies to a living thing that has feeling, like our skin. So it's just something to further simplify things. I think later down the road, winter weather advisories may be going away too. That's been talk, and that's something that I kind of agree with. Growing up in the Midwest, when we get these 2-3 inch snows, we'll often have a winter weather advisory. But there's a lot of us that a 2 to 3 inch snow is not a big deal. We've been around it enough. We know how that works. We know how to drive in it, though I think some people still have a lot to learn when it comes about driving it, even just an inch or 3 inches of snow. But it's all about simplification. If you were to go to the National Weather Service website, weather.gov, the first thing that pulls up is a huge map of all the watches, warnings, and advisories in place across the United States. If you look at that list of how many different products they have, it's huge. There are so many of them. So what the National Weather Service is doing is they're simplifying products. They want to make them easier to understand, and we want fewer of them to have to sort through. So instead of doing a wind chill advisory, you're likely going to see a cold weather watch or a cold weather warning, something like that. And when you hear about a cold weather warning, it's exactly what it says. It's going to get bitterly cold, if not dangerously cold. So it's all about simplification. And I kind of like that direction that we're heading in. Now, no, nothing is going to change with tornado watches, tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm watches, severe thunderstorm warnings. None of that will be changing. Right now, they're just focusing on the kind of more sparsely used products that we see this time of year. For example, like the winter weather and the cold weather and the wind chill. That's some of the stuff that they're kind of trying to trim down a little bit more to make it less confusing. And I'm all about making things less confusing, which is why we do this segment, so I can explain all of this for you. Right up my boat. Anna's asking, when Michael hit Mexico Beach, it was a Category 4. The Weather Service raised it to a Category 5 when it hit land. Also, you see it not on your list. Why doesn't it make your list? So that was Hurricane Michael that we're referring to here. So let me go to my list here that I've got saved. And you're right, it is not on my list. So the list that you might be talking about could be due to the wind speed. My list that I have on here is according to pressure. It's not according to the wind speed itself. And yeah, if you look at pressure, Michael does not even make it into the top 10. But I'm going to do a quick search here while we're looking at this, because I still think that might be related to wind speed. Because yeah, pressure here, so here's Milton, 897 millibars, Wilma, 882 millibars, and then Katrina down here at 902 millibars. 919, so that's why. Okay, so Hurricane Michael was 919 millibars. Kudos, Morgan Streckby. She's my little encyclopedia behind me today. Yes, so the reason it's not on my list is because we're talking about pressure here. And this is one of the main kind of things we use to measure the intensity of storm. I know we love to focus on wind speed, but we're focusing on pressure here. The lower the pressure, the stronger the storm system. But yeah, Hurricane Michael was a very, very strong storm system. You remember that back in October of 2018. Another strong October system. Winds of 160 miles an hour. 74 people killed in that storm. And total damage of over $25 billion. Lots and lots of damage there. And remember, yeah, that went right up to the panhandle of Florida, making landfall there. What was different about that storm is where it formed. It actually formed kind of in the Western Caribbean as opposed to the western part of the Gulf of Mexico, which is where Milton originated from. So Milton originated much further north than where Michael did. Michael was in the Western Caribbean. But that's a great question. Again, we're going by pressure, not in terms of wind speed, but pressure on this chart here. Great question, Ann. I love it. Let's see. Harold is asking, will there be any other tropical storms this year after Milton? I can certainly guarantee it at this point. There will be more tropical systems for sure. Is there anything out there right now that we're really concerned about? At this time, not really. I'll pull up the map so you can see what is going on in the Atlantic here. So here we've got, and ignore these labels here too. I'm going to take those off because some of those are outdated. But we do have, of course, our Category 4, Milton here, sitting in the Gulf of Mexico. We do have an area of low pressure that we're kind of tracking here off the coast of Florida. This one doesn't have the greatest chance at developing into something bigger, but it is something worth watching. We've already got a hurricane still spinning in the Atlantic, and that is Leslie, this one right here, a Category 1 hurricane. This one is not expected to continue moving off to the west. This one is going to get wrapped up likely in a Bermuda high that is situated a little bit further east. This one will curve right back out to sea. So this is what we call a fish storm. There's another storm system coming off of the African coast here, the western African coast. This one you can see here too with the trajectory is also kind of taking it more in this direction. So what you need to get storms to really start moving and impacting the United States is you need either A, something to form here, which is exactly what Milton did, or you need something here off the coast of West Africa that is much, much, much further south. Because when it goes as far north as what this area of low pressure here is doing, and you can see that, it gets caught in that steering wind that likes to pull things to the north. What we would want to see is something much further south. We would want a disturbance kind of right in here. That would allow it to keep that southern trajectory and start heading right for the United States in probably about a week to a week and a half. Now, there's a lot of activity going on in Africa. What happens, of course, is these clusters of thunderstorms move westward along this convergence or this frontal boundary, if you will. So there's a lot out here that has to move over the water. So we are not done with hurricane season quite yet. And the busiest time of the season, of course, the peak is now past us, but we still have quite a bit of hurricane season left to go. And I'll put up the graph here so you can see that. Here we are in the beginning of October, right here. And you notice there's kind of a little bit of a secondary peak when it comes to the number of named storms and also to the number of hurricanes right about there. We really don't see things start to quiet down until we get to about the second half of November, and then hurricane season will officially come to an end in December. But as we've seen in previous seasons, just because this says it ends in December doesn't mean that's the case. You can still get tropical storm systems that develop even in December. We have seen that before, but there you see the peak. We're now past that. We are sitting right about here when it comes to the frequency of storms on a typical season. So a lot more to come. I think we've got a little bit ways to go yet when it comes to some hurricanes coming in. These have all been fantastic questions, though. You guys are amazing for submitting your questions every week. Keep it up. I love getting these in here. So we're going to continue to watch that while we wait and see if there's maybe one or two more questions that come in here before we let you guys go for your Wednesday. Want to talk about the big pattern flip that's going to be coming our way next week. Some of you have been looking forward to some fall-like weather, and you're finally going to get it. We're going to head into the upper 80s on Friday, potentially tie or break another record high there. And then the strength of this cold air that's coming into the north, or from the north, arriving later this weekend into early next week is going to cause temperatures to take a nosedive to the coolest readings that we have seen in quite a long time. There's what we're expecting high temperatures and low temperatures to be for the next 2 weeks. Look at how the bottom falls out next Tuesday. We're going to be down to near freezing. I am expecting a widespread frost to be a good possibility, not only next Tuesday, but also next Wednesday morning. So heads up, if you're a green thumber, you got potted plants or anything else outside that's kind of sensitive to cold, you may have to do some plant shuffling as we go into early next week. This also, I wanted to plot this and show you the frost and freeze dates for the Quad Cities, the early versus the late, and then you have the average. So you can see the average runs just about between October 5th and October 15th, though that average is getting later with time because we know the fall season is warming with climate change, and we know winter start is getting delayed. But you can see we've had some late ones as late as November 14th, and that was back in 2014. We had a very, very late frost that year. But on average, right there in the next couple of weeks, that's going to be our first frost of the season. So we're getting there. May not seem like it, but things are going to be eventually cooling down. Quick check on the fall color, too, if you haven't checked this out. WQAD.com, there's our fall color guide right there on the home page. Check that out. There's a forecast updated 3 times a week. That takes us out to a full week ahead. This is the fall color as of today. We're starting to get a little bit more of it in our northernmost hometowns. And if you look at the forecast through next week, things really starting to pop off there. Along the Highway 20 corridor, we're expecting high color. Won't be long, likely the week after that, we'll be seeing our peak color arriving in the Quad Cities. That is usually between October 25th and October 29th. And based on this map, I would say we are right on schedule to see those fall colors get here into the Quad Cities in the next couple of weeks. So check out that fall color guide. It is live right now at WQAD.com. we're down to the final and last minute, and we still have all of our questions answered. So great job today, guys. I want to thank you for joining us for episode 4 of Ask Andrew Live. We'll have the whole crew back here eventually. It is that time of year. It's vacation. Got to get those days off in. But yeah, we hope to have Peter and Morgan back with us as we go into next week. I'll be right back here for GMQC at 11 coming up in just a little bit. And then I'll be back here for Ask Andrew Live next Wednesday, 9 a.m., same time, same place. You guys have a great day.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 8 Plus app everywhere you stream.